where it comes from, like what goes into getting it here, just the process as a whole, pretty much.
Sure.
So, I guess just first, very general question is like, for the most part, where does the food come from? Like, is it like local? Is it?
How detailed do you want me to get with it?
I mean, as detailed as you want
Okay.
it.
Well, it's two things. We source both locally and nationally. An account this size to source locally, it's impossible. And also with a company our size, it's we obviously have to have some consistency from accounts to accounts. Although we tailor all of our menus and needs to each area, there has to be some consistency from where we can pull from to have the most products developed. For example, produce, dairy are sourced locally. Now, some of those sources may have to go outside to pull from. At certain times, for example, like tomatoes are not available here year-round. They're available from August through the middle of September. So whatever's available locally, they're required to pull from. I want to say maybe 30% of our produce in the year-round can come because obviously most of our produce purchases fall between September and May, and it's not the prime growing season in New Jersey. All dairy is from Pennsylvania. That's where the local dairy source is. So it's still, although it's not in New Jersey, it is regional and falls in. And recently, our master purveyor, which is Cisco, our house was moved from Langford, Maryland, up to Philadelphia, so they can at least keep the local environment and economy going with that as well. So they are the closest Cisco house. So there was an expansion in the Cisco Philadelphia house that they're able to start housing all the products that we require. So for ecological reasons, obviously commuting 20 miles here versus commuting 300 miles here is obviously much better for the environment and also for the local economy because they're able to build up their workforce there with supplies. So, and then there's obviously master contracts that they have with, for example, like Heinz ketchup and stuff like that. So there's not local ketchup makers or anything like that. But so we try to keep as much local as we possibly can. Obviously, dairy and produce being the most recognizable that we can do every day, and then obviously there's so many other items and stuff we have to source from. We go to our nationals, and sometimes even have to obviously source stuff from Europe and other areas of their displays as well. So.
What about the meat? Like, where does that come from? Is it like local or no? Okay.
Most likely not. It's not. It's from Cook Foods, which is a very large producer. Does our poultry. They're on the East Coast, but they're not local.
Okay.
There's not a poultry farm around here that could supply enough chicken that we could use here.
Is Sodexo like East Coast or is it across the country?
It's actually worldwide.
Oh.
There's two divisions. There's Sodexo USA, which encompasses North America actually, and then there's a global part which does the other continents. It's based out of France, is the parent company, but like I said, there's over 165,000 employees just in the United States, so we represent a little more than half of their business.
How often does Rowan get like shipments of food, like
6 days a week?
6 days a week. Wow. Okay.
Our large orders come three or 4 days a week, but we receive bread, dairy, and a lot of the smaller producers deliver 5 and 6 days a week.
Do you have any idea how long it's like been on the road? I mean, I imagine since it's local, it pretty much gets processed there and then goes here.
It depends on the products. I mean, obviously, when you're getting your tomatoes from California, because that's available, they pick them at a certain time. They're probably 3 to 5 days crossing the country, and then on your table a couple days after that. I can say that the turnaround in the warehouse is less than a day. They get 5 or 6 shipments in a day, like the produce houses and stuff. And dairy is just processed on site and delivered.
About how much does it cost to like keep just the marketplace running? I mean, because that's a lot of food coming in, like, or the campus as a whole.
We go through approximately $100,000 to $110,000 in food a week. That can go up and down depending on whether or not there's events on campus, and obviously there's a little bit more in the fall than the spring, but for the most part, yeah, it's 100 to 110.
What kind of decisions go into like picking the food? Like when you, like, I don't know how. I'm a junior here, so I haven't been around that long. But like when you go into putting new places in, like the salad place or the smokehouse or things like that, like what kind of decisions go into like what food do we want here?
Well, a lot of it has to do with what you're currently doing, and then what you have to do is we have lots of resources. We have our national resources. We have our local campuses. One of the good things about working with a company like Sodexo is that, you know, we kind of are able to get into a lot of the trends and see what a lot of students are looking for and are using outside of just this area. So we can bring in a lot of new ideas and stuff to this region that may be popular in, like, say, Boston, California, Texas, Chicago. You know, it's easy for us just to look at Philadelphia because they're the largest, you know, local market. But at the same time, not every student's dining needs are going to be met by offering whatever regional cuisine is here. For example, like, almost half the students are from north of Princeton. So the New York market is actually something that we find that works better here. For example, Yellow's in the Deli is out of North Bergen, New Jersey, which is right across the river from Manhattan. New York deli style sandwiches do better than on this campus than hoagies do.
I've noticed some signs in the marketplace that you talked about, like gluten-free stuff, and stuff like that. How new is that? Because
Gluten-free's been, it's really...
how new is that here?
Well, my first year here was in 2007. I was not in this position. I was up in the marketplace at the time. And we had our first kind of couple students really start looking for more gluten-free items then. Now, it was only 2 or 3 students then, and now that we have about 40 or 50 students that are on gluten-free. So we find it's not just the celiacs that you have to, I mean, people are following gluten-free diets even just for, they find some sort of health benefits to them. You know, a lot of people have a certain level. Everybody has a tolerance to gluten. Some people are completely intolerant, and some people have a high tolerance to it. But there is, at some point, gluten, you know, affects everybody in some way. So it's just, you know, a lot of times people just find that they feel better when they're on a gluten-free diet. So it is something that is growing every year. So we increase, obviously, our not just our gluten-free products that you can bring in, like a gluten-free bagel or a pizza crust or something like that, but you also have to have some things on your menu that just are naturally gluten-free as well. So there's options. So we find ourselves, you know, putting more of those on the menu as well.
Do you find that you do a lot of work to try and keep with trends? Like, do you like?
So it's pretty much any part of your planning process is all really, I would say, like 90% of any planning we have is about keeping with trends, staying ahead, staying current, and then circling back to things that you haven't done in a while and bringing them back up to be current again. So that's a revolving door. Every trade magazine that comes in, we pretty much have to go through, you know, from front to back, even if it seems monotonous, because you're always looking for the next thing. We probably do 3 or 4 visits to other campus accounts every year to kind of walk through and look at things in details. We have fresh eyes. Teams come in here all the time and bring us ideas, and then a lot of times you have to incorporate those thoughts and ideas with your facilities and what you can make happen. And then, you know, there's the budget. You know, a lot of times, you know, a simple kiosk can cost $200,000 or $300,000 to build. So you have to always be conscious with that, because any increases can be passed down. Eventually, make it down to the students at some level, and we have to be very, you know, aware of keeping those costs down.